Crypto Kids, I think we've reached max fear with the amount of FUD that's going on. The fear and greed index is at extreme fear 14, and we have a compilation of different things that are projected on crypto Twitter to make things look worse than it actually is. Like them saying Michael Saylor's current Bitcoin being at a $2.1 billion loss, not counting the fact that Saylor was able to take a zombie company that only had a couple $100 million of an asset's market cap to having almost $60 billion in Bitcoin. So why don't they talk about that gain? And then we go into another piece of FUD, again about Jeffrey Epstein, which has circulated on Instagram with 13,000 likes of a completely falsified picture from one of the alleged emails. Then we have the Binance FUD, which are incredibly hyperbolized and taken to the very, very extreme, with a lot of fake information going on, causing a bunch of withdrawals, and so on and so forth, right? So I want to break to you what that FUD means for Bitcoin's price action. Where is the next level of support for Bitcoin with the volume profile? Because obviously, when we were sitting at $97,000, that was the big resistance. And then we said we were going to get resistance from there, and Bitcoin rejected to tremendously lower levels. So when I look at the next level of support for Bitcoin, it's actually where we are right now. In the short term, that may be a good thing, but whenever Bitcoin has lost its 100 simple moving average on the weekly time frame, it has always capitulated to its 200 week moving average, which is currently sitting at $58,000. With the way that the midterm years follow, this is a midterm year, expecting lower price levels for both the midterm year and the QT bear market is a sensible thing to say. I know that Bitcoin is more oversold on the RSI on the weekly time frame comparatively to COVID, but I want to highlight to you the bear markets in 2022. The RSI dips into the oversold level and remains in low prices for a very long time. And the way to trade the RSI is not actually, you shouldn't be, from a technical perspective, you shouldn't be buying once the RSI goes into the the oversold area. You should actually be buying when Bitcoin goes into the overbought territories. That's how you trade the RSI. I mean, people trade it differently, but that's at least from the study that I've done. So look, I think this is an interesting opportunity to start accumulating for sure, given the fact that if we do an inflation adjusted look into Bitcoin's price value in 2021 and today, we're actually a lot below the 69K top that happened in 2021, inflation adjusted. And I know that Bitcoin is a good future, et cetera, et cetera. You know that I know that there's no need to go into this in today's video. So I do believe that now is a good time to already be starting to accumulate. I think it's possible we go lower, but it's impossible to predict the exact bottom. It's impossible. The best of bests, AI trading algorithms and whatnot, they can't do it. Humans can't do it either. What we can do is create a ballpark of a good buying price range. And I think we're entering into that. So we will go through all of these things on today's updates video. So make sure to stay subscribed to the Crypto Kid channel and turn on the notification bell for daily price updates. We're here literally every single day. We've got you covered. Make sure to subscribe. And if you're looking for a place to be trading Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, check out the links in the description down below to Week, Slavex, and Coinflare to get the best rewards possible. All right, guys, I think this is the first time in forever that I actually agree with Jim Cramer, and I would have never thought that I would say that, but Bitcoin is flirting with a code red level. When he says code red, things sound extremely scary, but in reality, the 73.6, exactly where we are right now, is critical support from the volume profile. We highlighted that if Bitcoin were to break the 82.6, which was right over there, we would dip into this gap in liquidity where there isn't much buying or selling activity. Those liquidity gaps, when you break below support from volume profile, you sort of cascadingly fall in a very quick manner. And that's exactly what we've done. And we've highlighted that the next line of support would be the April 2025 lows and the March 2024 highs. And that's where we are sitting at this moment in time. So the good news is there is support, and a relief rally could very much be on its way. However, it doesn't mean that Bitcoin has completed its drop. When I think of the macro perspective, and that's my specialty, macro, whenever Bitcoin has lost its 100 simple weekly moving average in 2022, in 2020, in 2018, in the Genesis cycle, you've always come down to the 200 week moving average, which is sitting at 58. But by the time you get to it, which I think we will, you will be at the mid 60s. And that's the level I've been saying, in my opinion, where Bitcoin is going to bottom out at. But worst case scenario, I do see 49K. Worst case, absolute worst case scenario, I see 49K. So from a trading perspective, I want to do essentially three positionings. I'm going to do one position here, one position at the mid 60s, and one position towards the upper 49K region. That's the three entries that I want to do on Bitcoin. I was initially planning on doing so on this video, but guys, I am so tired. I don't trust myself on a crypto exchange right now because I'm at any point I can fall asleep. So let's do it tomorrow, okay? I promise you we'll do it tomorrow. But these are the three positionings that I want to take in terms of not scalp, but swing and position trade longs. So in the short term, yes, we can see a relief rally, but in the long term, I would expect more of a fall, or at least a continued price depreciation. An interesting data point is the ETFs. So ever since the inception of the Bitcoin ETFs, which came around in January of 2024, the ETF holders are in their highest amount of losses ever. So just an interesting point. When people are in losses, it's a good time to buy. When people are making too much money, it's a good time to sell. This is the thing. Like, you're not going to time the bottom exactly. These are for leverage trading positions. That's separate. But if we think of Bitcoin as an asset that we want to buy and hold in the long term, which is also something that I do, trading is just for passive income, then now is in my opinion fantabulous. I don't know if that's a word, but I want to say it. I think it's amazing to buy, given the amount of fear there is. Look at it, extreme fear. You want to buy the extreme fear. Look at this. Completely false narrative, completely falsified narrative, fake news, fake bearish news, making it go viral on social media. People fudding the biggest institution that has helped crypto get to where it is with, I would say, I mean, obviously Binance isn't solely responsible for where crypto has gotten to, but they've played a very, very, very big role. And in every single industry, always, 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 the number one player is always under scrutiny, no matter what. So I really believe we need to cut Binance some slack. And yeah, I mean, this fun, I don't see how it benefits anybody. People were highlighting that withdrawals on Binance were briefly affected because people are completely closing their accounts. First of all, there's a lot of these screenshots of I close my Binance account that's floating around. But from my understanding, a lot of them is just engagement farming. And yes, there are a lot of withdrawals because of the knock-on effect of these engagement farming posts. And there was about $600 million of net outflows. But imagine if you went to your bank and there was $600 million flowing out from your bank. You don't think they would have faced some difficulties? Yeah, of course they would. But in this case, it was only a 3-minute thing. So, it's just, I'm trying to emphasize that people take narratives in the bear market and hyperbolize them. This is the issue, to make people even more scared unnecessarily. Like, for example, Congressman Sherman asked Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, if they're going to bail out Bitcoin. Why would you need to bail out Bitcoin? These are all FUD. It's all FUD. It's all trying to scare you, and it's all trying to scare the people that are less knowledgeable about crypto. If a congressman is saying, is asking the Treasury Secretary if they're going to bail out Bitcoin, and Scott Bessent says no, if you don't understand Bitcoin, you're going to be very confused. That's going to seem like a bad thing. If you don't understand how to do proper research and due diligence, which 99% of people don't, and the prices are falling, your mind is going to be inclined into believing that this fake Epstein email is true. That's just how it works. It's really how it works. And again, another point that I found quite interesting was Novogratz saying that The big institutions are trying to manipulate Bitcoin's price so it goes down, just like how they did for silver all those years ago. And honestly, with the 10 a.m. sell offs that we've been seeing, silver had a similar 11 a.m. sell off. There's a lot of things, like even just like what JP Morgan says and other big institutions, when they say bad things about Bitcoin, they did the same thing back in the days for silver. And it was all to bring the price of silver down so they could buy in cheaper. So I do think there's an institutional market manipulation too at the moment for Bitcoin. But as a summary, look, I think now is a good time personally to buy for the long term. Can we stay lower for longer? Yes, we can. And I've already given you my leverage long entry price level. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all on the next video soon. Take care, and as always, bye-bye.